Welcome to Tech on Deck, a podcast series focusing on the critical business challenges facing B2B tech firms, with an emphasis on enabling technology. I'm your host, John Ragsdale. Today we are talking about how hardware and device manufacturers can make the shift to a subscription business model by introducing premium features, aftermarket services, and subscriptions, which drive new recurring revenue streams and enhance the customer experience. Our guest today is Omer Brookstein, co-founder and CEO of TSIA partner Xyte. Xyte is a unique software company that develops the Xyte device cloud, a fast, easy, and cost-effective path for hardware and IoT device manufacturers to launch a branded device cloud, resolve issues remotely, offer subscription pricing, and provide continuous value to customers long after the equipment has shifted. Omer, welcome to Tech on Deck.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure being here. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's good to talk to you again. I think this is such an exciting space. You know, we've been hearing about IoT or the Internet of Things for a few years now, and most hardware companies initially were trying to build their own technology. And in my experience, that frequently was not very scalable. There were security issues that slowed customer adoption. What are some of the shifts you're seeing among hardware and device manufacturers in adopting best-of-breed digital technologies?
Yeah, well, first of all, John, it's absolutely great to be here. I think it's a great question. And I guess I got to share with you some of the things that we see. And there's some really great IoT solutions. But what we're seeing is a shift of device manufacturers understanding that this is simply not their business to develop the infrastructure they need for their cloud solutions. So what we see is device manufacturers looking to get a unified solution that addresses their business outcomes. And we'll probably talk about that later on, rather than have different components and simply enable them to connect the devices to the cloud. I mean, and it kind of makes sense. When you think about when we're looking to buy a car, we're not usually looking to buy 4 wheels and an engine, right? And some windows to put on top, but we're actually looking to buy a car. And we see the exact same shift with device manufacturers. And the other thing that they realize is that being device manufacturers, they really do a great job in developing devices. But usually it's not their core competency. It's develop the kind of cloud platform to support these devices. And we see these device manufacturers, when they try to develop or try to build in-house, I often look at that as climbing mountains, right? Initially, you think that you just go to the cloud, you'll get some AWS IoT or Azure IoT, you put a device in the cloud. But only then you realize that after climbing the initial mountain, there is another peak after that, and another peak after that, and another peak after that. And you refer to security and manageability and commerce and all of those things that you have to take care for. And what they find out is that they better invest their resources not in developing an infrastructure layer, but actually developing the real product that they sell and take to market.
Well, but even if they build that initial, cloud connector, the product keeps evolving, and they never have the resources to go back and continue to rebuild and extend the connector. So they always end up behind the curve after a year or so, and there's never the budget to keep it up. So I agree with you. And if it is not your core competency, you really need to be reaching out to a company like yourselves, because that's all you do. So it is your core competency.
Absolutely, and it's a great point you brought up. With hardware components, hardware devices, in most cases, you develop a hardware for a few years, and then it's ready to market, and then you ship it and you sell it for a few years. There are very few iterations usually after this point. With software, specifically cloud software, we all know it's not the case, right? It's constantly evolving. There are constantly features coming from customers and so on. So these device manufacturers, and we see that, and it's unfortunate in some cases, they invest so much resources in, once again, doing something it's not their expertise to do, and then they just find out they need to put more good money over bad money, and it's instead of admitting that as a sunk cost, they just keep investing, while it's really not taking them anywhere, versus buying something off the shelf that dramatically lowered the risk, enabled them to get to the market much, much quicker. Once again, most importantly, focus their engineering and overall company resources in their customers, their product they're selling to the customers, and so on.
Yeah. So I know that there are some legacy on-premise hardware and device manufacturers that aren't necessarily moving to the cloud as quickly as they should be. Could you talk about how manufacturers are adopting cloud technologies or creating their own clouds today? What are some of the main use cases for connecting devices, equipment, or other kinds of hardware to the cloud?
Yeah. So once again, IoT is not a new term, but I strongly believe that we mislooked at IoT for the past decades, right? The challenge was always about connecting millions of devices and collecting, billions of telemetry messages to the cloud. But no one looked at the IoT opportunity from the business perspective. How will that enable these device manufacturers to generate more business? And I think that's one of the very unique things about Xyte. We actually don't see ourselves as an IoT solution, but we're rather a business solution, tailor-built, tailor-designed for device and hardware manufacturers. And what we see with our customers, once again, being the device manufacturers, is that in most cases, their initial use is to get the devices to the cloud and launch a completely branded cloud solution for their end customers, for their channel partner system integrators, value-added resellers, and so on, to remotely manage their fleet of devices or assets. So usually the first case is asset management in the cloud, and that's what's being asked by our customers, their end users, and system integrators. But as stated before, we strongly believe that these device manufacturers must move from one-time product sales into developing new cloud and services business models. And in a very, very high level, devices being commoditized across any industry. And we hear that more and more from our customers that they need to find new ways to make aftermarket sales and make new revenues from their devices. And to do that, they need a very robust cloud platform. And that's what Xyte enables them to do. And that goes really alongside with a change of management that we see in these companies. And I just got back about a month ago from a trade show we exhibited in Las Vegas. And we heard it from multiple of our customers that their executive team got replaced and the new executive teams came in with a mindset of subscription. How do we make more revenue that is recurring and predictable from our devices? The other thing, or the other use case that we see, and when you think about it, it's quite, I think mind-blowing, is that, we see younger generation coming to these device manufacturers, mostly in the product aspects, and they understand that they need to be able to see more usage data from their devices, because when they come to develop and plan their future roadmap or the future set of devices, they need to first understand how these devices are being used in the field as the device manufacturers, as the OEM making these devices. So they're way more data oriented, and Xyte helps them to collect, essentially unlimited data from their devices so that they can make these data-driven decisions for their future roadmaps.
And that's so important. I mean, companies are moving toward value-based selling. So you've really got to understand how people are using the technology, consuming the technology, or you're going to have a difficult time showing that they're getting value out of it. So you were teasing at this, but I want to dive in a little deeper. What are the benefits for manufacturers in adopting these subscription models? What impact are you seeing this have on the customer experience? And you were talking about revenue as well.
Yeah, well, so this is my favorite subject, obviously. I think that's really where Xyte, is so different than all the other cloud platform device manufacturers out there. And before I even get to that, I think we just have to acknowledge the fact that there's a very strong financial force. Regardless of Xyte, these device manufacturers, think about yourself. When was the last time you cared which brand you buy for your TV at home, right? You want to buy the biggest 8K, 4K, 3D, whatever display, but you don't really care which of the different brands it is as long as it's the right price tag. And device manufacturers in any industry see the same kind of thing. So the devices are being commoditized, the prices are going down, and the margins are shrinking. So they have to do something about that. And moving to as a service is the biggest shift that they can do. And when you think about it, what is the most valuable asset, and what's the greatest thing about SaaS company, about software as a service companies out there? It's not the recurring revenue. The recurring revenue is an outcome of that. But the greatest thing about these SaaS companies is that they have this sustainable relationship with their end customer. They know who's the end customer. And that's the most basic thing you need to know who's using and who's buying your devices so that you can offer them recurring and subscription-based products. So that's the background for all of that, right? The other thing is that they're really moving from customer acquisition, setting another product and another product every year from scratch, into customer retention, which also means, as I briefly mentioned before, they get a chance to develop a much more sustainable customer relationship with their end customer, right? When you subscribe to Office 365, the greatest thing from Microsoft's perspective is that they can now offer you an additional subscription, but they need to know you first to be able to understand how you're using the platform, what other features or product they can offer you. And the final thing is that obviously the recurring revenue, which implies predictability, but also implies on the manufacturer's valuation. Obviously for traded companies, but even for startup companies looking for next financial round, if you move to recurring revenue, the multipliers are much, much higher compared to standard hardware sales.
Yeah, and definitely more reliable, predictable, just a lot safer all the way around.
There's so many benefits. Cloud has been everywhere for so many years, right? Your devices today, they must be always on, always secured, always up to date, right? And they're distributed devices across the globe. You have to have a cloud solution to see all of that and to control all of that. And it has to be done at the level of the device manufacturers. I think I'm not done with the days, but I think it's much less valuable if it's just some end customer custom connecting a subfleet of devices. No, what we're talking about is device manufacturers connecting and collecting data from millions of devices and letting their end customers manage a subfleet of these devices for their own needs, while they can still support them remotely. They can offer them aftermarket products and so on. That's a much more, from a business perspective, that's a much, much more valuable solution for everybody in the value chain, the device manufacturer, channel partners, and the end customers.
So we've been talking primarily about the OEMs. You just mentioned channel partners. I have to think this would even be a bigger value for managed service providers, because they're reselling dozens, if not hundreds, of different pieces of hardware, and they need a single platform for all the monitoring, usage, consumption, et cetera. Is that a primary target for you as well?
Absolutely. So, when we talk to large device manufacturers, one of the biggest benefits they see about Xyte, in their words, is that they get to empower their channel partners to transition into managed services and essentially develop recurring revenue streams for themselves as well. And in many cases, those system integrators want to become MSP, managed service providers. They're actually the pool that go into their device manufacturers and say, hey, we need you to connect to Xyte so that we can offer better managed services, remote managed services to our common customers. Because one thing people tend to forget is that when you move from one-time sale to subscription, the customer, if he's not satisfied with the service, they will churn, right? So we need to make sure that they get the right support by the professional service providers so the customer stays happy. And by connecting to Xyte, these device manufacturers actually creating great new value for their valuable channel partners. And that's why Xyte focus mostly on B2B device manufacturers, or B2B2B in most cases, and we serve some of the largest device manufacturers, working with some of the largest system integrators and channel partners, servicing some of the largest enterprises today out there in the market.
So, moving to the cloud, definitely moving to subscription models. I think that there's got to be a lot of change management issues involved. So particularly for our listeners that are just beginning this journey, when they're evaluating steps for moving to the cloud, connecting their devices, what are some of the key considerations that they have to take into account?
That's a great question. And, we see a variety of customers. So I think we have quite a unique perspective on that. The first thing is that, once again, it's a mindset change, I would say, in a way, but they need to understand that this is not a timed project, right? They're changing their business, right? And it's going to have several steps, and they need to manage that, and they need to understand that they can't get it all within 6 months or 12 months, right? And the first step that these device manufacturers usually take is connecting their devices to the cloud, right? And we empower them to do really two things, as briefly mentioned before. A, connect unlimited number of devices to the cloud and collect data from their entire fleet of devices. And that enables them to, once again, better understand how the devices are being used and what will be the next steps in their project of cloudifying and transforming their business into a cloud-centric business. Then they can launch a branded cloud solution for their end customers and their system integrators looking to become MSPs, as discussed before. And it's a completely self-served asset management or MDM solution for their customers. And when they do that, once again, that's just another step for them when they can now collaborate with their value chain, with their end customer. They can collect a valuable input and feedback. And one thing that we see many device manufacturers, kind of struggle with is once again that mindset shift, because now that you're working with cloud software, you can and you should work in much smaller and quicker feedback loops, right? Once again, when you develop a hardware, you develop it for 2, 3, maybe 5 years, you take it to the market, there's very little that you can change, right? With software and cloud software, it's very, very different. That's why we think it's essential for them to take the product to the market as quick as possible and collect this valuable feedback from their customers. And once they have the devices connected to the cloud, and their customers are using that, we start seeing manufacturers to offer a variety of what we call digital products. And those are their cloud-based products. And in many cases, it will start with a complementary service that you can buy directly from the OEM or the device manufacturer, sometime to the channel partners. It then goes to premium features. And I'm going to use the Tesla as an example, many of us I'm sure familiar with. But when you get your Tesla, you can buy the insurance for the Tesla directly from the Tesla app. You can do the same thing with Xyte, with every device manufacturer that supports it using the Xyte platform. And then if you choose to, you can subscribe to premium features. In the Tesla case, that will be the full self-driving. Xyte enabled these device manufacturers to do the exact same thing. We fully host the cloud for them, and we also take complete care for the payment processing and gateway end-to-end, including all the license and entitlement. And finally, we have some of the most forward-thinking device manufacturers moving to complete device as a service, equipment, machine as a service, or hardware as a service, completely moving their business model to as a service. And I would say maybe one last thing I think is very interesting about that is that some of the device manufacturers, some of the leading brands out there we've been working with, they were initially concerned about moving to device as a service. What will that do? Will that cannibalize their current business? They're making quite a good business of selling one time, and cash flow wise, it's maybe a better business model for the short term. The other thing is, what if people will just get my device, use it? If I'm using a usage-based pricing model, I'm not going to make any revenue. And what these device manufacturers found out is that A, it enables them to get more market share, because now I can have two offerings. Some, for the one-time fee for the customer that find it best fit for their needs. But then I have an OpEx or an option for maybe younger audience that is more accustomed to buy a subscription. I get more market share because I'm more competitive in price. So there's so many benefits, and it's case by case, but Xyte as a platform supports all of those use cases.
I love the usage-based pricing. I had a great conversation with one of our members that is a medical device company, and their equipment is extremely expensive. And they have switched to this model, which is allowing them to put this critical equipment in very small cities and very small clinics because they're only charged when they use it. So it's actually, democratizing access to critical health technology because you don't have to pay full price for this, massive piece of equipment up front.
Absolutely. And the other great thing is that now the device manufacturers, goals perfectly aligns with the end customers, because we both want to have, have the longevity of the devices. We want to have them for a long time. We want to have better service for the customers, because usually the way you build it, the metrics after 3, 4, 5 years, it's starting to be more profitable for the device manufacturers. It's OpEx versus CapEx for the end customer subscribing. So it's a win-win-win situation. It's more even for the environment, it's a better solution. It's just a win for everybody's solution. It's just about working the numbers in a way and making sensible to everybody, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So could you explain some of the different ways that manufacturers are deploying these as a service business models? Are there any best practices you're seeing emerge from your customers?
Yep. So I kind of mentioned it before. I think that when we see device manufacturers, and it's usually based on their size, by the way, what we see is that some of the largest device manufacturers, I always say that, they've already hired, TSIA or McKinsey & Co and others to consult them, and they understand they have to move to as a service. So their number one priority is move all the way to device as a service. And the second they meet us, we want to use Xyte to start selling our devices on a subscription base. But in most cases, these device manufacturers will usually start with some complementary services, some extended manufacturer warranty they're going to sell using the platform to once again grow their ACV and grow their aftermarket sale with their customers and enable their channel partners discussed before to sell their services on the platform and so on. It then gets more interesting, I would say, when they move to premium device features. And premium device features is one of my favorite features. And the reason being is that not only it enables the device manufacturers to capture aftermarket sales opportunities, but it also have a dramatic impact on the complexity of the inventory the device manufacturers make. So think about this case. I have 2, 3, 4 different SKUs as a device manufacturers with some very minor differences in them, right? And I have them across 2 or 3 geographics and maybe 2 or 3 different colors, right? And now I can take all of those and just kind of aggregate them into one SKU. And then after I sold that SKU, I can toggle on, toggle off some features in that specific device for an additional fee or subscription fee. So not only I offered my customer the flexibility, I actually save the tons on my inventory complexity worldwide. That's a huge benefit for these device manufacturers. One of our customers, an audio video company, a professional audio video company from the United States, just launched their commerce experience about a month ago in Las Vegas, enabling audio over IP and some advanced other audio algorithm using the Xyte platform exactly in that use case. And then finally, as discussed before, they can move completely to hardware device as a service, and that can be either a monthly fee, so we'll pay $50 or $100 a month, or as we mentioned before, based on usage for the device. So we actually know to connect a dollar number to a telemetry coming from the device. So think about use cases of charging for a truck based on the mileage, charging a PC based on the CPU usage, maybe charging for roaming data based on how much you use the data and so on. We enable all of these for this device manufacturing in a very, very flexible and configurable platform for them.
So, TSIA's members are primarily B2B technology companies, but we do have some consumer device manufacturers as well. And I'm guessing from your comments, it sounds like the consumer world may be ahead of the B2B world on this shift.
Well, yes, I guess I'll agree on that. I think the B2B, from our perspective, and that's why we started focusing on that, we see that as a great opportunity, maybe because, or mostly because, it's kind of lagging behind. But we also do have B2C customers as well. They're leveraging our platform as well. They don't usually leverage all the the channel partners aspects of the platform for obvious reasons, but they're using the platform to sell directly to the consumer. We have a very large partner in Europe that does that very, very successfully. So the platform, once again, it's very modular and configurable. So it fits B2C in many ways. It is easier from our perspective because there are less members in the value chain, there are less components. So if you build something to be robust and secure, then privacy audited for B2B, it definitely fits B2C as well.
Well, Omer, thanks so much for joining me today. I think you provided some excellent thought leadership for our listeners on digital transformation for device manufacturers and moving to a subscription model to boost revenue and annual recurring revenue. Any final thoughts?
No, it was great meeting you again. Thank you so much for the opportunity, John, and we look forward to keep collaborating.
Well, once again, a big thank you to Omer Brookstein, co-founder and CEO of Xyte, for sharing your insights. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this episode of Tech on Deck. I'll see you next time.